co-production of all actors in mind. So that's a very tall order to actually achieve. And for that, I want us not to say what can public relations and communication and our creative industry do for communication. It's what we should be doing. Victor, if you would mind moving to the next slide, because I can't. I can. I'm lying. Thank you. So the communication during crisis, what PR should be doing is about understanding the communication that happens. Provincial, that's another book, a very recent book on crisis comms, which came out at the beginning of the year, that speaks about someone, and it's a very interesting summary of what communication is about. But it's really talking about someone communicates something to somebody else. A multidisciplinary and cross-cultural, more than anything else, approach to crisis communication is important. And we need to ensure that we, as public relations and communication industry, create the engagement opportunities and platforms for people to answer their own questions. And we provide them with the information to assist them in making their decisions and answering their questions. Our approach to date has been, and I am now running through my thoughts here, is that we often fall into the trap of understanding what a good communication strategy is, and we go through the book and we go through the processes and we put it out there. And only then to realize, like we did in COVID communication, that many people complied to the rules in the stages of the crisis that we experienced and the communication that came out. Then people started asking, so what's the reason for X, Y, and Z rule? How is that going to influence me? What do we have then as a counter argument? If it is just information that we provide to people saying, this is what is best for you, just do as you are told and apply it to your everyday life. So the role for me, the what should PR be doing is to create sense, to really make sense out of all this chaos, all of this uncertainty for people, not with an agenda from an organization, but for the people to make up their own understanding of what, and sense, make sense of what it is that they are going to have to deal with. So in the event of information deficit, and the deficit is not because there's no communication. The deficit, in my opinion, is that there is not relevant information. People do not know where to find information. That's why we have fake news. That's why we have people coming up with their own ideas based on their own agendas, based on their own understanding of things. So we need to start focusing on developing critical consumers of news. And how do we do that? We develop a media and PR literacy, not just amongst our formal scholars or our students or our communicators that's formally tasked with this, but actually people that are the consumers of this news that we put out there. I'm sure we've all seen in the first stages of COVID information going around, people coming up with interesting interpretations of how COVID started, what was the, and I'm not even referring to the conspiracy theorists, but why do we have COVID? What's the cure for COVID? How should you gargle with certain ointments to prevent yourself from getting COVID? And all of these types of information had to be counteracted by somebody else. Now, we often take on the role ourselves to tell other people how they should be thinking. But in the case of them not having authentic information and authentic facts that they can base their own decision on, that's what happens. So acknowledging local wisdom and influence, not from a top-down manner, but from a bottom-up, from the grassroots communication need that people have is essential for understanding and changing the stories. I was amazed with what Claire said in terms of the stories that people are telling about how they dealt with things, and that is going to assist us in navigating into a more favorable position and wanting people wanting to visit South Africa again. It's exactly what we said yesterday. There are so many stories to be told of how people handle and is still coping with situations of crises. And COVID is just the first, perhaps, of many more to come. And there has been many other crises. So what are we doing with this local knowledge to actually tell the story of how to deal with things? At the onset of COVID, at PRISA, we went into a partnership with ONICA, the brand intelligence organization, that then set up a series of analyses for us per week of what the media coverage was around COVID during the first 3 months, from March to the end of March to the end of June. And we have vast amount of information that they provided us with that we could track what the sentiment of the media, what's the media storyline and narratives, but also how that presented in later on in Twitter and other social media platforms. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but just to illustrate that there are opportunities for us in South Africa to really collaborate with our people, with formal, private sector as well as public sector, to assist each other in navigating the uncertainties. They a different type of information over the and there's was a real indication of how the sentiment has changed. Very useful information for any public relations professional out there was which organizations and which media houses presented what kind of facts, which are the media or the reporters that presented and was the most mentioned, what type of underlining narrative was actually presented by organizations. All of these facts were readily available to us as communicators in South Africa via ONICA and PRISA. Now all of a sudden, I can't continue moving my slides. Victor, can you assist? Doesn't want to move on my side.
Slide.
Victor, can you hear me?
Yes, so yes, I can. We're on the next slide, developing critical consumers.
Okay. So, can you hear me? Let's first establish that.
Yes, we can hear you, Madam President.
Thank you. Okay, and it still doesn't want to move.
Continue, Madam President. Next slide.
Okay, Vic, next slide. I can't see it on my screen, it's frozen. Let's continue. Can you see the slides on your side, Vic?
Yes, we can see the slide, developing critical consumers of information.
That's it. It's not showing on my side, but I will continue from my handout. So, as I said earlier on, the need for us as to how to present and what we should be doing as a as public relations professionals is to develop a PR literacy in amongst our consumers, which is a subsection of media literacy. It's conceptualized as the ability to identify, analyze, and evaluate public relations messages. And that comes from Coombs and Halliday. So how do we construct our PR messages constructed and perhaps reconstructed through situations of framing and proposing a response from the community members? So the literacy issue comes from the critical theory of public relations and looking specifically at the power relations that is exerted and the influence that messages have. So we're moving away from just compiling information according to our normal practices, where we get a strategy together based on research, based on understanding the stakeholders, based on the most efficient way to communicate with them, and then just get the information out. The emphasis is on the bottom up, on the person who's going to consume the information, and actually asking them to co-design the messages that they understand are important for us. I don't know who of you actually watched the Social Dilemma documentary on Netflix as yet, but that states is absolutely in line with how and why we should be a understanding of media literacy, and then specifically public relations literacy. If you can just show us the next slide, please, Beck. Distinguishing between fake news and spinning.
Yep,
so how do we distinguish between these? There are many suggestions on the cards on how we do that, but the media literacy is to develop in our consumers a critical mindset of how they actually take information, how they consume information and news that come their way. And that's the only understanding that I have in how to deal with fake news. Fake news is going to be with us, and there's a number of examples of how we in our own industry has abused our license to practice and have infringed on our own ethical codes. I'm just thinking of Bell Pottinger and how Bell Pottinger actually worked on the dark side of public relations. They, according to them, did nothing wrong. The rest of the world and us in South Africa actually have a different understanding of that. But the subtle use of information has been really at the heart of how public relations as an industry should really ask ourselves, put up the reflective mirror and ask ourselves, have we always acted in good faith? So to me, the distinction between fake news and spinning is quite clear. If we provide factual information to our audiences and to the people who are going to consume the news, we need to be open and transparent as to the biases that's associated with the media. So we need to know and we need to explain to our consumers, and it's a tall order, because it means we need to come out and say when it is a paid, sponsored set of information and on whose behalf are we actually acting. There must be credibility in the facts that we are presenting, not how we are framing the information so that it suits somebody's agenda, but actually what are the facts. We also then have the way of almost a checklist that we give to consumers of information that asks them the question, when are you emotionally charged with a piece of information? Now, we often find that, and Maxine, I'm not sure if you have that experiences on your side as well, being a very emotional person, as I know you, but we often receive information via email or via a WhatsApp, especially a WhatsApp, that really leaves you at immediate attention to it, immediately feeling aggressive, angry, emotional about it. And people share that information on the spur of the moment, not asking the critical question, have I tested the credibility of this information? Have I asked myself about the accuracy of the facts that supposedly presented to me? Is it really a timely piece of information that we can use? Is it complete in the type of representation? Are there people's views represented that we can all say, but I hear what you are saying as one party of this event or experience, but there's this side of the story as well. So who am I supporting here by sending this WhatsApp further? The alternative sources
Dr.
of
Benecke?
information must be experienced as well. We must be open for alternative views. And that's not always easy. It's a tall order to ask our ordinary person that they need to be what our students call woke. They need to be aware of what happens in the area or environment around them, to really ask, do I have really a sound understanding of other people's ideas and opinions as well? For that, we have in Africa, the Africa Check. In South Africa, they are very active in actually assisting us with checking our facts. I did look at the International Spin Watch, but they have not updated their website since 2019, so I'm not sure if they are still in existence.
Dr.
But
Benecke?
those are some of the... Yes.
I'm so sorry to have to cut you short on that. I think it's such an incredibly important topic, and I think it's something that we can have a whole extra day on. I'm just incredibly mindful. Unfortunately, we do need to wrap up by 3 o'clock, and we also have one more speaker left. So just to give everybody a chance. So just a massive, massive thank you for touching on something so critical on the fake news, the spinning, the authenticity of communication. So thank you so much for that. And again, if there's specific questions or comments, we'll make sure that they reach you after this session. So thank you very much, Dr. Benecke.
Thanks, Rene. Can I just ask that you guys project the last slide, please? And we can use that as a point of discussion later on.
It was great, Rene. It was great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.